Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/Tales from Retail. And today we have a fresh set of stories for you about crazy people. But before we start, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. $10K in damages over a 10-cent overcharge. This happened a few years ago when I was working at a large upscale beauty supply, wigs/weaves, etc. store. Our register was a bit old-fashioned, so we had to punch in some items by hand. Usually not a big deal, but definitely left some room for human error. One day, a woman came in and my coworker pressed the wrong button and overcharged her by 10 cents. My coworker instantly realized what happened and refunded her the money and gave her a few full-size free examples. But upon hearing that her refund would take a few days to process, the woman flew into a fit. At this point, being the manager, I simply came over and tried to smooth things over. I did offer her 10 cents directly from the register. She refused. She wanted the money in her account immediately. At this point, she was screaming loud enough that the entire store pretty much stopped operating. Every customer in the store was focused on the drama. The customer wouldn't leave, wouldn't take a cash refund, and only wanted a direct deposit of 10 cents in her account immediately. Then the lady started screaming about how Chinese people are all thieves. I tell the lady, I was born in Virginia, and she responds by telling me I came on a boat. At this point, I see no possible peaceful resolution, so I leave her with the assistant manager and head to the back to call the cops. While I'm in the back, I hear a sudden crashing sound followed by gasps. I run back out front and see the woman has knocked over the entire cosmetics display, breaking almost all of the products and damaging the display itself while still screaming over 10 cents. She was dragged out of the store by police, and we ended up suing and winning around $10,000 in damages. And our next story. I got accused of discrimination because I asked for her ID. I work on the sales floor of a supermarket in the UK. My job is to answer my phone whenever a colleague calls me for whatever reason, and just to generally keep the checkout and self-scan areas tidy. So among my travels around the store, I get a lot of angry customers, unhappy returns, and I'm so many times asked to call my manager down that I practically have her on speed dial at this point. So on this day, I'm at the front desk selling cigarettes, lottery tickets, and scratch cards. Thankfully, one of the easier jobs. Now, it's important to mention at this point that our store and many other stores in the UK use a Think 25 policy when selling alcohol or any age-restricted products, which means that if someone flags up an age-restricted item at the checkout, you have to assess if they look younger than 25 years of age. If there's a shred of doubt in your mind that they might not be 25 or older, it's always safer to ask their ID. Mystery shoppers tend to try to catch colleagues out on this. So, as it turns out, one of our colleagues sold alcohol to one of these mystery shoppers a few days ago without asking for ID and resulted in all checkout colleagues to fill out a Think 25 quiz sheet to make sure we all know the rules. So with this information very fresh in my mind, I'm very aware of clocking people's age on this particular day. The next two people in my queue are a Polish lady, PL, and her male friend, MF. PL walks up to the kiosk desk wearing a KFC uniform, looking well under the age of 25. That's a red flag for me, as many people in our area take up first jobs at McDonald's or KFC right out of high school. No problem, as long as she has her ID, there's no issue. Me. Hello, what can I get for you? PL. I'd like a number 3, 7, and 12 scratch cards. Me. That's fine. Have you got your ID with you? She then gives me a look like I've just taken my pants down and crapped on the desk right in front of her. A mixture of mortified shock and unbridled rage. PL. What? Are you kidding me? Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's our store policy to ask for ID if you don't look 25. PL. But I'm 18. Me. I understand that, but you need some form of ID to prove that to me before I can sell you anything. She then proceeds to get out a photo of her passport on her phone and shove it in my face. There. Happy now? Me. Unfortunately, ma'am, we need a physical form of ID to make sure it's not a fake and that the photos look similar. I won't be able to accept a photo of your passport as ID. PL. But the police in Poland accept this just fine. This is ridiculous. Me. But we're not the Polish police. I simply won't be able to sell you these scratch cards without a physical form of ID. PL then storms off, cursing obscenities in Polish, while me and everyone else in the queue is in unanimous shock at what just happened. MF then comes up to the kiosk next, who I knew she was with, and proceeded to ask for the exact same scratch card numbers. I stand there in disbelief for a second at how short this man thinks my memory must be. Me: "Sir, I'm not selling you these scratch cards. They're obviously for your friend." He's cheery enough about it and understands, then proceeds to leave. I figured that was the end of that and continued serving customers. PL then storms back in, pushing past customers in the queue, and practically fires lasers out of her eyeballs at my name badge, makes an audible and walks out of the store again. Weird. Maybe I should let security know about this lady so he can keep an eye on her. Not a second after I decide to walk up to security, she comes back into the store with the confidence of 1,000 suns. She bravely thunders up to me at the desk and asks me to call my manager down with the smuggest of grins on her face. I say, absolutely no problem, and smile back with the knowledge I've done nothing wrong. Both my manager and another manager from a different department come down and ask this lady what's the matter. PL: "This man is refusing to sell me scratch cards because I'm Polish." My smile quickly turns into a look of confusion as the front desk queue proceeds to metaphorically set up their chairs and get out their popcorn. Manager: "Is this true?" Me: "Absolutely not. The lady did not look 25 to me, so I asked for her ID. She didn't have any on her, so I did not allow the sale." PL then whipped out the photo of her passport and stated that she has it right here. My manager then gives me a look as if to say, "Oh, it's one of these customers." My manager then calmly reiterated that store policy needs a physical ID, blah, 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 blah. PL: "I want this man fired. He said no to my friend who's clearly over 25 years. Surely that isn't acceptable." My manager then explains what a proxy sale is and how that isn't allowed either. "This is just discrimination. I'm 18. I'm old enough to buy them. Just because I'm Polish, he's not selling them to me? How could you hire someone so incompetent?" Our security guard then comes over and says that she'll have to leave as she's causing a scene and definitely not getting her scratch cards now. Her entire demeanor changes after she sees the big security on his jacket. PL: "Oh, okay. Sure, no worries." She then leaves the store in a huff with our security guard. I take a few deep breaths and return to the desk. The next gentleman I serve is chuckling away to himself, and I ask how I can help. He then asks me for a 3, 7, and 12. I place my head into my hands and laugh as he bursts into hysterics. Let's move on to our next story. You have every right to think that's not me, but it's me. This story takes place a year or so ago while I was working at a drugstore. I was working a front register when a gentleman came up with a green dot card. That's a prepaid Visa debit card. I gave him our welcome spiel and asked him, "How much would you like on the card, sir?" He replied, $500. He then handed me a credit card. When purchasing a green dot with a credit card, you need to have a valid form of ID so we can verify that the name on your ID matches that of the credit card you're using. "Do you have your ID on you?" I ask him. "Yep, here you go." I take one look at the ID and I'm baffled because it's not him. It's clearly not him. The man before me was approximately 5'7", naturally tan skin with a mustache. The man in the ID, however, was white with a height of 6 feet tall. I take the credit card to compare the names, and they were a match. This guy was clearly in possession of someone else's ID and credit card. "Sir, this isn't you." "Excuse me?" "Sir, it's obvious that the man in this picture isn't you." "It is me. How dare you? Give me my cards back." F that. I slide the cards out of his reach and page for my manager. He arrives swiftly, and I calmly explain the situation. He's trying to buy a green dot card, but the ID he gave me, he interrupts. "This is me. I want my ID and credit card back. Why won't you give them back?" The customer is starting to lose his cool and is clearly agitated. My manager says nothing as he looks at the ID and back at the customer. This isn't you," my manager says. "Yes, it is." This goes back and forth for a while, and when he finally drops the line, "I just don't understand why you won't give me my cards back." "Because I can't give you back property that isn't yours." "You have every right to think that's not me, but it's me. You can't just take my cards like this." Well, I'm going to call the cops, and the instant the word cop leaves my manager's mouth, The customer bolts to the exit, runs to his car, and does a 180-degree turn in the middle of a busy street, puts the pedal to the metal, and his car goes screeching down the road. My manager told me I did a good job, and I'm sure he was in contact with the police shortly afterwards about the stolen ID and credit card. I had my credit card info stolen before, so it felt good to protect someone else from it. I guarantee you he thought you wouldn't actually look at the picture on the ID, just the name. So when he got caught, he tried his best to feign innocence. Stupidity at its finest. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.